I got her letter the same day the funeral ended. While everyone else was fighting over her jewelry and fancy dishes, I quietly stepped outside, sat in the car, and opened a cream-colored envelope. Her handwriting was shaky, but I knew it well. She wrote, "Do not let them know you have anything, Mia. People show who they really are when they think you have nothing left." I thought her last words would be full of love, like in the movies. But instead, they were about how to survive and a $36 million fortune. My grandma, Margaret Whitmore, had died at 87. Everyone remembered her as the weird old lady in a wooden house in Vermont. She wore hand-knit sweaters, old slippers, and always had tea with 3 sugar cubes. No one knew she used to be the most powerful woman in real estate in Massachusetts. Even my mom, Karen, thought she was just a cold, stingy old woman. She never helped when my parents divorced, never paid for my college, and never gave fancy gifts. Just books. Every time I got a book, my mom would roll her eyes and say, "Mia, you do not need more fairy tale nonsense." But this letter, it was no fairy tale. Inside the envelope were papers from a law firm I had never heard of. They said I was the only person who inherited anything from Grandma. Not my mom. Not my stepdad Rick. Not even my younger brother Logan, the tech genius who kept failing at startups, but still got praised as the family's future. Just me. A 25-year-old bookstore worker at a tiny shop called Maple Pages. I made $2,400 a month. And now I own 12 properties across 3 states, plus shares in 3 companies. A $36 million investment portfolio quietly growing for over 10 years. Along with the legal papers, there was a letter from Grandma. "Mia, if you are reading this, I am gone. But do not cry. I do not need tears. I need you to be smart and strong. Do not tell anyone what you have. Not your mom. Not Logan. Not anyone. They will stop seeing you as family and only see you as a safe full of money." I sat in the car for an hour, shocked. I remembered Mom's words from just the day before. "Your grandma left us nothing but old books and poor people's dreams." I almost laughed. Those musty books could now buy her whole neighborhood twice. But I said nothing. I stayed quiet. From that day on, I started living 2 lives. On the outside, I was still Mia, the quiet girl who worked at a bookstore, made coffee, and answered questions about books. I lived in a small apartment above the store. No one knew I owned the entire building. Or the 3 houses next door. They all thought I was still poor. Still kind. Still clueless. Mom would say, "Sweet Mia is so nice, but she has no idea how the world works." She told that to the neighbors all the time. I let them think I was weak. When Logan posted vacation photos from Cabo with the caption, "Starting fresh," I smiled quietly. I knew one of my companies had bought the failed startup he didn't know had gone bankrupt 6 months ago. When Mom complained about bills and hinted, "Mia, do you have any savings? I want to buy Logan a new laptop," I would say, "Not yet," because I was not looking for revenge. I was waiting for the right moment. Grandma once told me, "Real power is not about money. It is about when you choose to let people know you have it." On Monday morning, I made myself coffee with the old machine at the bookstore, poured it into a chipped mug, and walked to the counter. I held the notebook, pretending to be busy. Just a normal bookstore manager. But upstairs in my apartment, I had signed a $2.3 million deal to buy a building in downtown Boston. The same laptop I used to check book orders was also used to watch over my investments. I had created a company called Margaret Legacy Trust, and I was its secret CEO, managing over $25 million every day. Still, Mom kept calling me silly. She never stopped bragging about Logan, her 22-year-old genius son who still could not keep a job. He had wasted over $300,000 on failed business ideas, but she still treated him like the next Steve Jobs. Me, I graduated top of my class in economics, working 3 jobs to pay for college. But nobody remembered that. All they saw was a girl working in a bookstore, driving an old car. At one of Logan's parties, his 3rd startup idea, Mom pulled me aside. "Mia, at least wear some makeup. Serena, your cousin, is just a secretary, but she dresses like a CEO." I smiled. That very morning, I had approved the purchase of another commercial building in Chicago. I did not need to look like a CEO. I was the CEO. Sometimes I wondered if they truly did not see me or if they chose not to. To them, Logan was the main character. I was just a shadow. One Friday, Mom called. She sounded unusually happy. "Mia, this weekend Logan is pitching a new idea for a pet app. We're throwing a small party with some big tech people. Dress nice, okay?" I remembered something funny. One of my companies had turned down Logan's funding request just last week. "I'll stop by," I said. "Don't be late like last time you embarrassed me," she snapped. I hung up, took a deep breath, and opened my laptop. 10 minutes later, I was reviewing a report from Trident Financial, one of the many companies I secretly owned. One line in the report caught my eye. "Hayes family rising debt, poor credit. 2 new loans approved this month." The Hayes family, that was my family. They had mortgaged the house again. And through layers of hidden companies, I was the one who approved that loan. I did not need to threaten anyone. I just watched quietly. One evening after work, I visited my mom's house. It was the same red brick home in a fancy neighborhood of Newton. The chandelier inside still sparkled. The dinner table was filled with imported cheese and Italian wine. Logan was sitting on the sofa with his legs up, proudly talking to investors about a new app. It was supposed to let cats choose their food using scent sensors. My mom looked at me from the stairs and frowned. "Mia, why did you come in that old car? Do you know what the neighbors must think?" "Probably that I do not live off my mother," I replied. She said nothing and walked away. That was fine. I never needed compliments from someone who spent years quietly tearing me down with polite words. Later, Logan asked for another $80,000 to finish his app. My mom used a credit card with a very high interest rate to pay for it. I knew because the approval email was sent to M&L Credit Group, one of the finance companies I secretly owned. They had no idea I was behind everything, slowly making their world fall apart. And still I waited. Because in this game, the person who smiles last wins. Winter came early to Newton. It was colder than usual. Snow covered the walkway, but the usual snow removal crew was gone. I noticed when I slipped walking up the front steps. My mom opened the door with a fake smile. She looked tired. Her usual pearl necklace was gone. She wore a cheap gold chain instead. The fancy Italian leather sofa had been replaced with a fake one. The Persian rug at the entrance had disappeared. I noticed every detail. My mom sighed. "We let the staff go for now. The pandemic, rising prices, it's hard for everyone." I nodded silently. But I knew the truth. There was no new pandemic. Only debt. And they did not know the debt trap was set by me. Logan still acted like a king. Just 3 weeks after my mom sold her engagement ring to pay the electric bill, Logan pulled up to my bookstore in a brand new Tesla Model X. He wore a leather jacket, expensive sunglasses, and walked in like he was scouting for his future company. "You're still here," Logan smirked, looking around. "This place smells like old books and old coffee. Must be calming, right?" I smiled softly. "Very calming." "And you're at the one where cats order food, still going strong?" Logan laughed loudly. "It has evolved. Now I'm working with an AI team on smart pet care. It's a billion-dollar market. I'm talking to a major VC fund. Might raise $45 million. I knew which VC fund he meant. It was Larchmont Ventures. They had rejected Logan's idea. They said it made no financial sense. I knew because I was the main owner of Larchmont Ventures. A few weeks later, my mom called me in a whisper, like someone might be listening. "Mia, do you have a little money, just a few thousand? I need to pay the club membership. I mean the water heater repair." I slowly set the phone down. I had just seen her credit report the day before. She had 4 credit cards overdue. And the fancy country club had already canceled her membership. I spoke gently. "Mom, is the club really that important enough to lie about it?" Silence. Then a tired sigh. I just don't want to lose face. My friends keep asking why I haven't shown up. I can't tell them I lost my card. I just need a little more time. Logan's about to launch his platform. Everything will be fine. Nothing was going to be fine. I knew they had refinanced the house for the third time in 2 years. The last loan was from a company named Willow Fund LLC. It sounded random, but it was actually another one of my companies. Because I controlled the loan, I knew everything. My dad had secretly started selling his stock in the company he used to work at, trying to pay off secret debts. My mom had sold her luxury handbags to pay for the Tesla, a car Logan did not even know was in her name. But the saddest part was not that they were falling into trouble. It was that they still believed in the fantasy. They still believed in Logan the genius. And they still saw me as the helpless girl working in a bookstore. One Tuesday evening, I was upstairs working when the doorbell rang nonstop. I went down. It was my mother. She wore a long coat. Her lips were pale. Her hands were shaking. She held out a paper envelope. "I need your help," she said softly. "The house, it's going to be taken away. I can't tell Logan. It would destroy him." I took the envelope. It was a copy of a foreclosure notice from Harborstone Financial, one of the smaller firms I owned through a bigger company I created. I looked at her. I felt nothing. "I thought Logan was building a billion-dollar company," I said. "He just needs more time. I just need your help this once." I nodded slowly. "Go home. I will see what I can do." She walked away, her steps heavy in the snow. Back upstairs, I opened my laptop. An email from my lawyer was already waiting, ready to send foreclosure notice as scheduled. I placed my hand on the mouse. For the first time in years, my heart beat fast, like it used to when I gave school presentations as a kid. I did not hate them, but I would not save them anymore. The truth was about to come out. And none of them were ready. 3 days later, my mother walked into the bookstore. No warning. No call. She looked like she had been crying for hours. Her mascara was smudged down her face. I stood behind the counter and gently asked, "What's going on, Mom?" She took a deep breath and pulled out a bunch of papers from her bag. House documents. Another foreclosure notice from Harborstone. The third one I had seen this month. "Mia, they said if we don't pay in 5 days, they'll take the house. I have nothing left. I need your help." I looked up. Her hair was messy. The gold hair clip she always wore was gone. The fancy purse she always showed off had been replaced with a plain canvas bag. She looked just like the house, trying to look strong on the outside, but falling apart on the inside. I felt a tight pain in my chest, but not from sadness, from years of being hurt. All the times my mom had called me useless, average, someone with no future. And now here she was, begging the same daughter she once said should never have been born. I stayed calm. "Mom, I work at this bookstore. I earn $2,400 a month. After paying rent, bills, and food." I opened the drawer, pulled out a few small bills, and counted them. "I have $3,000 saved. Do you need all of it?" She stared at me in shock. Then her face changed to anger. "Mia, you can't be this selfish. That's your childhood home too. If we lose it, what will happen to us?" I looked at her calmly. "Did you think about that when you refinanced the house a third time to buy Logan a Rolex?" She froze. "He needs to keep his image for investors. He has a future. He's this family's last hope." "And what about me, Mom?" I asked gently. "I'm the one you call when you're desperate. But the rest of the time, I'm just the nobody who works at a bookstore." She didn't speak. Then suddenly, she slammed her hand on the counter. "I raised you. I fed you. I gave you an education. And now you treat me like a stranger." I clenched my hands, but kept smiling. "I paid for college myself, Mom. You said there was no money because it all went to Logan. I worked 3 jobs for 4 years. Do you remember that?" She looked at me like she didn't even understand my words. I gently pushed the papers back to her. "I'm sorry. I can't help. That money is all I have." That evening, my father called. He didn't ask how I was. He went straight to the point with the same strict voice I remembered from childhood. "Mia, your mother told me you refused to help. Do you realize our family is falling apart?" I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. Chicago's skyline sparkled. My office was on the 39th floor. Every deal I made here could change someone's life. "I know, but I don't have much to offer. I just work at a bookstore, remember? He snapped. Cut the attitude. This is not a joke. You're part of this family. You can't let us lose everything. I paused, then asked, what about Logan? Why not ask him? He's getting ready to meet new investors. He has to keep up appearances. You don't understand. The world is hard, especially for young men. I laughed softly. And for women? We don't have to maintain appearances. He didn't answer. Then he said something I never expected. If you won't help, then you're no longer my daughter. I said nothing and ended the call. I did not cry. The next day, I got a report from my lawyer. Every debt my family owed, their credit cards, their house loans, even Logan's student loans, had been bought by my company, Mia Whitmore Holdings. From that moment on, I controlled everything. I texted my lawyer. Begin the process. Send payment demand. 10-day deadline. Then I went back to the bookstore. Made myself a cup of mint tea. There were not many customers. Sunlight came through the dusty windows. Everything was quiet. I smiled. They thought I had nothing. And I let them think that for 3 years. But not anymore. Now the game had started. And I held all the cards. That morning was cold and gray, the kind of day when truth shows up without mercy. I parked my sleek black Mercedes outside the Suffolk County Courthouse. I wore a light brown trench coat. My hair was in a neat bun. My makeup was simple but elegant. No one would recognize me as the poor bookstore girl. I arrived early. Not to prepare anything. Everything was already done. I came early to watch. To witness the exact moment when the Hayes family's perfect image would fall apart. At exactly 8:41 a.m., Logan's scratched-up silver Tesla arrived. My parents stepped out, trying to act calm. My mom's eyes were red from crying. My dad looked like he carried the weight of the world. Logan wore sunglasses and dragged a file case behind him without even looking at our parents. They had no idea I was there. To them, I was still just the girl behind the bookstore counter. The courtroom was full. Some media were there. Hayes Enterprises had once been a big name in real estate. Others were finance people, curious to see who the main creditor was. Judge Wanda Ellison entered. She was known for being tough on rich families who lost control. She hit her gavel. Civil bankruptcy, hearing number 4928. Defendants, the Hayes family. She looked at the file. Primary creditor, please confirm your presence. I stood up. A wave of whispers swept through the courtroom. My dad turned around fast. My mom gasped. Logan dropped his phone. Mia Whitmore, I said calmly. I represent Whitmore Holdings, which now owns all of the Hayes family's debt. Total amount, $12,700,000. No way, my mom whispered. Mia, what is this? My dad said, shocked. Don't you work at a bookstore? I turned to them, calm and clear. I still do. I love books. But that's not all I am. The judge nodded. Please continue, Miss Whitmore. I opened my briefcase and laid out the documents. Over the past 3 years, the Hayes family refinanced their house 3 times, took 6 large loans from 5 banks, and maxed out multiple credit cards. All those debts are now owned by Whitmore Holdings. I am the legal representative. My mother cried. Mia, how could you do this to your own family? You're my daughter. I looked at her. You said I wasn't your daughter anymore when I wouldn't give you my last $3,000. Remember? The room fell silent. I went on. But I didn't come here to destroy anyone. I came with an offer. I slid a folder toward their lawyer. This is a debt restructuring plan. If accepted, the debts will not be collected, but only under 3 conditions. The judge nodded. Go ahead. I looked at Logan. Then at my parents. Condition 1: Logan Hayes loses access to all family money. He must get a job. No more startups. No more fundraising. No more big ideas. His job is already arranged sales associate at Pet King Pet Store in Roxbury. $15 an hour. What? Logan shouted. You can't do that. I'm a founder. You're a burden, I said coldly. And it's time you learned what real work feels like. The judge banged her gavel. Order. Continue, Miss Whitmore. Condition 2, I said. My parents must join a 12-month money management program. Weekly spending reports. No more than $2,500 per month allowed. My father clenched his jaw. My mother cried harder. The final condition, I said slowly. They must sell the mansion in Newton within 45 days. I've already bought a smaller house in Worcester. 3 bedrooms. A small backyard with a plum tree. It's enough to live, not to impress anyone. The courtroom fell silent. Judge Ellison flipped through the papers. This is the kindest debt offer I've ever seen. Defendant's lawyer. Does your client agree? The lawyer leaned in, whispered something to my father. He nodded slowly. His face looked like he had just swallowed ice. We accept. I closed the folder and stood up. I smiled, not out of revenge, but because the truth had finally come to light. As I walked out of the courtroom, I heard footsteps behind me. Mia, why? My mother asked, breathless. No longer angry. Just broken. I turned around and met her eyes. Because you needed to understand, I'm not the foolish girl from the bookstore. I'm the last person you should have underestimated. An hour later, I stood outside the Suffolk County Courthouse. The wind cut through my trench coat like it was turning the page on a long, painful chapter. Logan was slumped on a bench in the parking lot, his face drained of all color. My mother clutched her canvas bag like it was the last thing she owned. My father said nothing, staring at the pavement with sweat on his forehead. No one spoke to me. No accusations. No more pride. That was now a luxury they could no longer afford. 3 days later, I got a confirmation email from the dealership. Logan's white Porsche had been repossessed. In its place, a 2015 ash gray Toyota Corolla had been delivered to their new home in Worcester. No sunroof, no heated seats, no premium sound system, but enough to get to work if he ever chose to. At 2:14 a.m., Logan sent me a message. One line. You've ruined my life. I did not reply, because he needed to realize his life wasn't ruined by me, but by the privilege he never deserved. The Newton mansion was listed 20% below market value. I was the buyer. Through a smaller branch of Whitmore Holdings. No press, no attention. Just a normal real estate deal. I did not need the world to know. I only needed them to know. My mother called me one last time before the move. Mia, why Worcester? Her voice held no bitterness, only weariness. I smiled softly. Because it's quiet. And affordable. But I don't belong in a place like that. You once told me I wasn't classy enough to sit at the Blackwell family table, I said. Silence stretched. Then she said something I never thought I'd hear. I'm sorry. I did not know if it was honest or just born of desperation. It did not matter. I answered gently. I just hope, for the first time in your life, you live in reality. No illusions. No lies. The next week, I went to a high-end fashion event in New York. Not to shop, but to meet the designer behind Elysian, the brand that made the frilly green dress my mother forced me to wear at Logan's honor party. Back then, she had said, wear this. It makes you look expensive. At least people will think you have value. I had said nothing. I wore the dress. Endured the whispers, the fake smiles, the humiliation. But this time, I shook hands with the designer, handed him an acquisition folder. Whitmore Holdings now owned the entire Elysian brand. My first executive decision? Cancel the Glimmer Grace line, the green dress model. Later, I called my mom. She picked up on the 5th ring. That green dress, I said. It's gone. Forever. What? I bought the company. And I erased the design you once made me wear. It was ugly in every way. Mia, did you do this to get back at me? No. I did it to end an era, one where I had to endure shame in the name of love. She said nothing. I ended the call. I did not need her reply. Over the next 3 months, I got regular reports from the financial oversight team. Logan quit his job after 2 weeks, calling it a toxic work environment. My father tried to apply for another emergency loan, but his credit had been marked high risk by Whitmore Holdings. My mother became a gardener. For the first time, she pulled weeds with her hands instead of calling a maid. I no longer interfered. My work was done. One quiet Saturday, I returned to the bookstore. Not as an employee, but as the owner. I placed an old photo of me and Grandma Margaret on the front table. Behind it, a white curtain danced in the breeze. I sat down, held a warm cup of tea, and closed my eyes. No anger. No pain. Just peace. My grandmother once told me, "True strength is not in revenge. It's in knowing when to let go." That day, I finally understood what she meant. 3 months after the court hearing, spring arrived in Boston. Flowers bloomed on Commonwealth Avenue. But the real transformation was not in the streets. It was inside a modest house in Worcester. I sat in my high-rise office on the 39th floor of the Whitmore Executive Tower. The March report on the Hayes family had just arrived. For the first time, I paused on every line. Financial status, stable. Weekly spending, within limits. Financial counseling, attended all 12 sessions. I called the program manager. "She's always the first one in," the woman said. "She sits front row, takes notes. And Mr. Hayes, he brings a small notebook, writes down every single expense." I was quiet. Then I checked Logan's report from Peking. He had worked 7 full weeks without missing a shift. I parked 5 houses away from their new place. Walked quietly. The house was white, with the plum tree I had arranged in front. No gates. No marble statues. Just a home. My father was cleaning the windows. No tie, no assistant. Just a man learning to live again. My mother was mowing the lawn. Hair tied back. Rubber gloves on. I didn't walk up. I just stood from afar for a few minutes, long enough to see they were trying. That night, back in Boston, I wrote in my digital journal. A habit I'd kept since my grandmother passed. The greatest strength doesn't lie in wealth, but in how we choose the moment to reveal it. She was right. I did not need to make them suffer. I just needed the truth to do its work. I didn't retaliate. I offered a path. Whether they walked it or kept falling, that was up to them. The next day, I visited Maple Pages, the old bookstore I never fully renovated. I never hung a corporate sign. It was where I grew up. A living memory. Sarah texted me. "Are you sure you want to keep this store? It doesn't make a profit." Asterisk. I replied, "I don't need it to be profitable. I need it to remind me where I started." Asterisk. That afternoon, a 15-year-old boy walked in looking for books on investing. He asked, "Do you think an average person can become wealthy?" Asterisk. I smiled, bent down, and handed him The Millionaire Next Door. "Not only can they," I said. "They should." He smiled, paid with a few crumpled bills, and left, unaware he had just received advice from one of the wealthiest and most discreet CEOs in Massachusetts. I watched him walk away, thinking to myself, let them think you have nothing. When the time comes, show them you have everything. 5 years later, I stood in the Grand Hall of Harvard Business School. The crystal lights above reflected off polished wooden floors. In my hand was a microphone. In front of me, hundreds of students, hopeful, eager. They had come to hear the story of the anonymous woman behind Boston's financial world. I began with a quote Grandma Margaret once whispered before I left Vermont at 18. "When you're underestimated, you don't need to argue. Just prove it with results." The room went still. I spoke of working at a bookstore, of hiding a multi-million-dollar fortune just to see who loved me for who I was and who only loved what I had. I spoke of family. Not with resentment, but with the calm voice of someone who had passed through fire and come out stronger. I told them how I took control of every debt my parents had, but instead of crushing them, I gave them a second chance. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, I said. It means choosing not to let that pain control your future. After the talk, a shy student approached me. She said her mother called her a failure for not studying law. She felt invisible in her own family. I looked at her, short hair, red eyes, and saw my younger self. I held her hand and said, "You are not invisible. You're just waiting for your moment to shine. And when it comes, never apologize for shining too brightly." My parents' house in Worcester is different now. Not grand. Not luxurious. But warm. Comfortable. Real. I still visit every few weeks. Not out of guilt, but because I want to. My mother now volunteers at the local church. My father found joy growing organic vegetables. He always sends me bundles of lettuce with handwritten notes. Homegrown. Truly organic. Logan now works at a nonprofit helping underprivileged youth launch startups. One evening, in our mother's kitchen, he said, "I used to think money was power. But it's just a tool. The person holding it is what matters." I nodded, saying nothing because he had finally learned a lesson I once had to learn alone. Maple Pages remains open every day. It now has a small cafe in the back and a special shelf labeled, "Free if you need it more than I do." I no longer work there, but I still visit every week. I sit in my old corner and read a random book, just to remember the journey. On the center wall, there's a photo of me and Grandma Margaret. Beside it, a plaque. True strength doesn't lie in wealth, but in how we choose to reveal our dignity. Today, I no longer live in two worlds. I don't have to hide. I don't have to flaunt. I am Mia Whitmore. Once unremarkable. Once overlooked. Once dismissed by my own family. And now, I am the keeper of my own light. Sometimes, late at night, when the city quiets and the skyscrapers flicker, I sit on my balcony with a cup of mint tea and whisper, "Thank you. Thank you for not believing in me. Thank you for underestimating me." Because of that, I learned to believe in myself, without anyone's permission, And if you, the one reading this, have ever been told you're not enough, remember this. Your silence today. Be patient. Your moment will come, Mia's story is not just about reclaiming justice from an unfair family. It is a powerful reminder that true value doesn't come from recognition, but from how we choose to face pain and rise anyway. In real life, many people are overlooked, judged, misunderstood. But when we live by our true worth, when we wait, when we act with dignity, the world will notice.